Hey everyone, welcome to this video about how to take on the Toastmaster role at a Toastmasters meeting. Before we get to that, if this is your first time landing on one of my videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean so much. I am passionate about not only Toastmasters, but impactful communication, and I want you to be a more effective and impactful communicator. Therefore, my video content is aimed at doing just that. So if you subscribed, you'll get access to all of my videos, which are going to give you great tips and tools to leverage on your path to becoming a powerful communicator. So back to the reason that you landed on this video, perhaps you are taking on the actual Toastmaster role at a Toastmasters meeting and you don't know what you signed up for and you're panicking and you're about to have your meeting and now you're doing your YouTube research to prepare. Don't worry, you came to the right spot. But I will say that being the Toastmaster is one of the most challenging roles, at least in my opinion, at a Toastmasters meeting. So first off, good for you for signing up for that role. If you haven't done that yet, but you're thinking about it, I would really encourage you to do it because Toastmasters is all about creating not only great communicators, but great leaders. And the Toastmaster role is very much a leadership role, and it's something that is a great skill to have, to be able to chair a meeting, to pass off the podium to other individuals, to do the preparation before the meeting. These things are important skills and are going to benefit you in general life, I promise. The first thing that is required of a Toastmaster is preparation. So often, whoever is signed up for the Toastmaster role will be asked or required to send out an email or however you communicate with your club members prior, so in the week leading up to the meeting, to articulate a few things. First off, what is the theme of the meeting? So great Toastmasters meetings have great themes. Sometimes they're having to do with the time of year, so this video is probably going to be posted in October. Maybe Halloween could be a theme, or maybe fall, or seasons, or it could be anything that you want. It could be nostalgic movies, favorite 90s bands. Feel free to get as creative as you want with this because it's totally up to you what the theme of your meeting is going to be. By sending that information out to club members, they can start to think whatever role they're in, maybe they're the table topics master. Now they know what types of questions they should be asking because they could revolve around the theme. Or perhaps somebody has signed up for the humorist role. Now they're thinking in their head, do I have a funny story regarding Halloween or whatever the theme is? And that's very helpful to the others who are going to be participating in agenda roles at the meeting. The second thing you'll want to do in advance leading up to the meeting is communicate with people who have signed up for speaker roles and get a bit of information about what they're going to be talking about. You'll want to know what path they're on through the Pathways program, what the title of their speech is, and perhaps a brief introduction and a little bit of information about the speaker. This information will come in handy to you because when you're introducing the first speaker or the second speaker, it's going to sound so smooth. You'll know exactly what they're working on, give the context for the rest of the audience so they know what type of speech is going to be coming. That way, the speaker doesn't have to do that. They are simply stepping up to the stage and performing their speech or giving their speech, and they don't have to explain what it is that they're talking about. Take the time to reach out to those speakers beforehand and make sure that there are evaluators matched up for each of those speakers. One thing I like to do for our Toastmasters meetings that are in person is print off agendas of the meeting. I think that is the role of a Toastmaster. Therefore, show up early. That's my other tip. Show up early to the meeting that you are a Toastmaster of and set out agendas in front of everywhere people will be sitting so that they have that right beside themselves. If you're doing it virtually, no problem. Still show up to the Zoom meeting early and have a digital version of the agenda. Perhaps it's a link or an attachment that you add in the chat, or maybe you share your screen for part of it that shows what the agenda is. But whether it's virtual or in person, it is your responsibility to ensure that everyone knows what the agenda is for that meeting. Part of the other benefit of showing up early is that you can track with the agenda who is there to fulfill roles. Because sometimes this situation will come up where somebody has signed up for a role and then last minute they send a 5 minute before the meeting start email saying that some crazy thing has come up and they cannot make it and they are so sorry. And it's unfortunate, but these things happen. They happen almost every single meeting. Something comes up. Somebody's no longer able to do their speech or their role. And you as the Toastmaster have to roll with it. You have to fill that agenda. You have to assign people to do different things. Therefore, it's a clever idea to identify members of the club who maybe haven't signed up for a role. And when you show up early and you see those club members come in, whether it's virtual or in person, this works both ways, you can ask those individuals, hey, I see that there's still a spot open for an awe counter. Do you mind taking on that role? Or it looks like Sarah is running a few minutes late. If she doesn't get here, are you able to take her role as evaluator for Jimmy's speech? By having those backup plans, you are going to be prepared and then not panicking, because once you're up and you're speaking, you don't want to have to worry about the logistics of the meeting. You want to make sure that the agenda is filled and you have speakers for each different area. At the beginning of your Toastmaster section, when you introduce yourself, you start the meeting just after the toast usually. It depends on the club agenda. Every club is a little bit different. I do recognize that. But you want to give some context to the theme and talk about why you picked that theme and set the tone for what the attendees can expect of that meeting. One mistake I've seen pretty commonly is people take too much time in this area talking about the theme and getting bogged down and telling a long story, and then that pushes the timing for the rest of the agenda that you're scrambling to get everything done. Be concise when you are delivering that opening and remind people to try to use the theme throughout the meeting when they are speaking. One of the most powerful tools you can have as a Toastmaster is transitions. To be able to transition smoothly from role to role is the most enjoyable experience and makes for the best meetings. So as an example of transitions, pretend you have a humorist and then the next role up is the grammarian. Within our club, I believe that is the role order for part of the agenda. So the humorist or the joke master, depending on what your club calls it, delivers his or her speech. Let's pretend that individual used some really strong vocabulary. As Toastmaster, that's your opportunity to thank that individual for taking on the role and then maybe pointing out a couple of the words that they used, which you were really impressed by, and then transitioning. Speaking of great use of the English language, I'd like to invite up our grammarian to talk a little bit more about how we can use great use of language throughout this meeting. Those subtle transitions from point to point make a world of difference. If you were an attendee or in the audience or one of the other members who is participating in the meeting, it will just feel so natural and the flow of the meeting will be incredibly smooth. This is an advanced tip and trick, so if it's your first time being Toastmaster and you're hoping to just get through it, don't bog yourself down worrying too much about transitions. But if you are an elite Toastmaster, that is something that you should try to implement to make your role even stronger next time. As I mentioned before, every club's agenda is a little bit different. So if you're not overly familiar with your club's agenda, make sure you familiarize yourself with it. Perhaps reach out to your club president or the VP of education and just get a grasp on how the structure should be. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. There are no bad questions in Toastmasters. A couple final things to keep in mind of. One of the most important things for the Toastmaster to do is to ensure the meeting is going on time. Naturally, you're going to have some speakers who speak for too long, and naturally, you're going to have some speakers who don't speak long enough. And that's okay as long as the balance of the meeting eventually arrives at the meeting end time. The goal of your meeting as a Toastmaster should be to start on time and to end on time, and in between make the meeting as good as possible. You may have to coach different people. If your meeting is running late, the table topics master, perhaps they're used to asking 3 different people questions. Maybe you have to make an announcement and say, hey, for this role, we're only going to have time for 1 to get us back on track, but please invite up the table topics master and clap as they come up. Something along those lines to ensure, again, you can't let the meeting go way late. You have to make sure that it is on time. That is incredibly important, and it's a real life application. All of us have meetings or work functions, or whether it's a wedding or whatever it is, it's important that these events stay on time in real life, and it's important that they stay on time at Toastmasters meetings as well. The last tip I'll give you for being a great Toastmaster is to always hand off that podium. I understand this video is coming out kind of during the midst of COVID-19 and that different areas are different. A lot of your meetings aren't happening in person right now, but for the most part, pre-COVID, that would usually mean a handshake to each speaker who comes up. But regardless of whether you're doing that or not, don't leave the stage until the other person has come up and you've done some form of greeting to acknowledge them. They say don't leave the stage cold. Don't leave the podium cold. You always want to have somebody who is there. As a speaker, it's important to remember after you're finished your speech, look to the Toastmaster and wait for him or her to come up before you depart. But as Toastmaster, it's important that you're keeping that in mind as well. As for virtual or Zoom meetings, that's probably not as relevant of a fact, but it's something to keep in mind once you get back to in-person Toastmasters meetings. Final tip I will give you for being the Toastmaster, because again, it is the toughest role. It is an overwhelming role at times, but don't let that spur of the moment inevitability about being a Toastmaster fluster you or get you frustrated. The meeting is all about how you react and how you take control of it. And if you are relaxed, if you are confident, so will the other Toastmasters members. If you are frazzled and worried and concerned, they're going to see that. They're going to feel stressed out as well. So it's key that you take that leadership position and set the tone for the meeting. Expect the unexpected. That is a guaranteed with taking on this role, but you're going to do great. Just own it, prepare for it, and I'm excited to hear about everyone who watches this video and then takes on the role for the first time. If you do that, leave me a comment. I've already had some great comments in previous videos of people taking on roles for the first time, and it honestly makes my day to read that. So please do that. Leave a comment if you take on the role for the first time or if any of these tips were beneficial for you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Consider subscribing to my channel, and I hope all of you have an amazing day.